friends. I'm Suzanne A. Wells, and this is episode number 79 of eBay the Right Way. Today's date is September 21st, 2022, and today's guest is Brandon, who you may know from the Facebook group. And you may have already heard my big news that I'm in the process of moving from Atlanta to Greenville, South Carolina. This happened kind of fast, so I wanted to take a minute to explain why I'm making this move and putting about half of my store on auction so I don't have to move it. And assure you that nothing about my business will change. Okay, you may remember that I moved to my scenic mountaintop location back in December of 2020. That was a horrible year for a lot of people, and the love of my life died just as lockdown started. That in itself is a long story, which is why I wrote a book about it. And that book is in my eBay store if you want to know all the gory details. Anyway, the master plan was to stay in my mountaintop home for about 5 years and then see where my life was and really think about what I wanted to do next. So I knew this wasn't my last stop. And another reason I diligently keep my inventory small, lightweight, and portable. My mountaintop home with incredible vista views was the perfect place to write my memoir and dive into creating my educational products. So during 2020, I reconnected with my best friend since 1979. Her name is Marion. And for probably 20 years, our lives were very busy raising kids and living in different states. So we took some time in 2020 and spent some time together and took some trips. She also experienced a devastating death in her family. So we kind of came together on that. And it was like our friendship never missed a beat. We collaborated on my educational products, and she is my graphic designer now. Her brother owns the printing business that prints my educational products. And I was going back and forth to Greenville from Atlanta, which is only a 3-hour drive. But I was doing that every month or so for both business and personal reasons. And the more I visited, the more people I met, and the more connections I made. Keep in mind that I have known Marion and her family for over 40 years. And you can't say that about a lot of people in your life. And at this stage of my life, those long-term friends and relationships are such a treasure. New friends are always wonderful, but you just can't get friends you have a lifelong history with. You either have them or you don't. Most of Marion's extended family is in Greenville, so they have sort of adopted me because we go back so far. And it's just such a warm and welcoming environment when I go visit. Now, remember in 2020 and 2021, the housing market went haywire. And of course, we experienced crazy inflation in 2022. I am in a rental situation because I knew this location was temporary and I didn't want to have to fool with selling a house later down the road. I wanted to be able to just pick up and move and go wherever I wanted to go on short notice without having to worry about a house. So my rent increased $300 in 2021 and will increase another $200 this year. So that is a $500 increase in just 2 years. And I honestly don't know how people are affording this. I certainly wasn't planning on it. And I think it's insane, and I just refuse to pay that. So I would be moving anyway. So, along with a new social life, which I very much enjoy, I started paying attention to the cost of living in Greenville. Rent for something comparable to what I have, the same square footage and age of the property, which is under 5 years old, is $700 less a month. When I found that out, I set the wheels in motion to move. I also discovered that the cost of living in general is about 40% less in Greenville compared to Atlanta. Things like insurance, utilities, business services, even thrift store prices. Gas and food are about the same. And another factor is the ease of travel from Greenville. I will be 6 miles from the Greenville-Spartanburg Airport and 2 hours from the Charlotte Airport. For the last several years, I have avoided air travel just because I absolutely despise the Atlanta airport routine so much. I'm about 30 miles north of the airport. So by the time you get there through Atlanta traffic, park your car somewhere in a lot, take a shuttle to the concourse, and go through security, it's like a 4-hour thing just to get on a plane. And my soul is just tired. I don't want to do that anymore. So I started thinking 40% lower cost of living is the same as a 40% raise. And there is nothing keeping me in Atlanta. My kids are grown and they have their own lives. I maybe see them once a month, and I'll only be 3 hours away if they want to come visit me. And I will be in my new location in less than a week. So while moving is a hassle, this move will result in a better quality of life, and your money goes a lot further in Greenville. So hello, all you South Carolina people. I can't wait to be your new neighbor. And I'm looking forward to trying some new ways of getting inventory in a smaller city. Garage sales, estate sales, church sales, and doing road trips to surrounding cities like Asheville and Charlotte. But don't worry, nothing about my business is going to change except my location. I am so excited about starting this next chapter of my life, and I feel like I have an entire village of people just waiting for my arrival. So that's the big update. That's what's going on with me. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, let's get into the conversation with Brandon.
Hello, listeners. Today we have Brandon with us, and he has sort of emerged on the Facebook group this year, I think, but with some amazing stuff. So we're going to go through the standard routine of where you are, what you do, what kind of things you sell, and most importantly, the backstories. Because we are all just real people selling stuff online.
That's it.
Okay, so you did Zoom perfectly. How are you doing this morning?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm great. I'm ready for this.
Awesome.
I've learned from the master here.
Yeah, far from it.
So first, let's talk about where you're located, because that's important.
I'm in Round Rock, Texas. Which is just north of Austin. It's like a suburb. It touches now. It used to be a little further out, but Born and bred in Austin, though, so Texas.
Okay.
So
So Austin's like Atlanta. It has a big metro area.
yes,
Yeah.
lots of little suburbs are basically all meshed together now.
Okay. And Austin, from what I hear, is a thrifting mecca.
It is. It is. I don't do as much at the thrift stores as probably a lot of people. I kind of started trying there, but estate sales are really where I do most everything now. Although
Okay.
occasionally we'll go here or there, but started in January. However, started eBay, I believe back in 2000. So I do coin operated amusements, which is pinball machines, arcade games, pool tables, stuff like that. But this is for people to play. I repair them. I mostly do pinball machines. And my dad started that in 1984. So I grew up around it. And when he passed in 05, I took over, but I didn't know a whole lot. So way back in 2000, of course, eBay was somewhat new still.
Right.
I was in college and he was needing to sell some machines and he had a bunch of parts. And I told him, hey, let me get you on this new thing called eBay. And so I helped him sell parts and machines through eBay back then. So that's what got my feet wet way back when. And I kind of took a break. I never really pursued selling or doing any of that. Of course, I was in school at the time. So yeah, that's when I started. But fast forward many years, I'd sold a few things here or there. We had my dad passed in 05. My mother remarried. He passed in 19. And we adopted her. She said she didn't want to live alone anymore. So we all lived together. We had some stuff to sell from all of that. So I started doing that a little bit to get rid of things. And, my mother's a former teacher. My wife is a current teacher and, tough profession. So mother's on teacher retirement. And, my wife has days where she's like, I got so many more years to go until, and I thought, let me show them, I always liked hunting for things and finding things. So, and in the pinball world, it's kind of like that. You find one broken, you fix it up, you sell it for a profit. And so I thought, let me listen to some folks online. And I listened to all kinds of different people, ran across you.
Okay.
Liked how you presented things a lot, and I started dabbling. I thought, let me show them by example that you could do this, especially my mother because she's retired now. So, and just show them it's a viable thing you can do. Started out, I don't know, probably like a lot of people, went to some thrift stores. Listened to people on podcasts about getting Peter Millar shirts and different, clothes. And I've learned I don't really care for clothes myself. But I found some here and there that did well. And then I went to the bins for the first time. And of course, I found something pretty good there my first time. I think it's like that with anything you do, right? You go to Vegas, you play blackjack the first time, and it's like you can't lose. So
like all of a sudden, oh, this is so easy.
Wow. Yeah. So
well, back to your wife. How far is she from retirement?
At least 10 years.
Okay.
Retirement.
Do you mind if I ask what year you were born?
1978.
Okay. So
44, I think.
Not quite to retirement zone, but you never know. People retire at 40 these days and just they invent something and they get a whole bunch of money, or they they've done their thing, and then they move into a lot of them move into eBay because they're bored, or they have all this stuff from their lifetime accumulation. or they're wanting to monetize their thrifting knowledge, or, all different reasons, as you've heard. But never assume just because somebody's in their 40s, they're not close to retirement.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But I do, every teacher, nurse, and person in law enforcement in like our generation, they always know, oh, only 4.5 more years till I retire. Like they know, they do this countdown, and that would give me so much anxiety. It's like, oh my God, that seems so far away. But they're not going to forfeit their pension and all the benefits. Right. They're going to hang in there and do it. And I admire people that have the patience for that.
Yep. I've got friends that are cops too, and some of them, they've got a clock running on their phone by the minute.
4,829 days and 4 hours and 12 seconds.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
Right. So once I found you and like I say, started the bins, I found some PlayStation games that were inside of actually in an old CD case, and everyone had picked over it. And I knew that I used to game a little, but I mean, PlayStation 1 was kind of from my era. So I knew that was a Black Label game, and those are sometimes more expensive, but they were all loose. But hey, they ended up being worth $60-80, a piece. And there was probably 4, 5, 6 of them in there. And, everybody had walked past it and I don't get with the herd and do the mass running of the bulls there as I
You're like the lone wolf on the fringes.
Yeah, I let all that happen, and then I go.
The hyena that's the scavenger. Like, okay, what did they leave behind?
Yep. And books, I started grabbing some books there. Took my wife and mother for the first time, and of course, my wife found a Hooked on Phonics full set.
Okay.
That was open, but totally complete. And most of it was still sealed, and we were finding pieces of it here and there, and we ended up finding the whole thing. And I don't know, I think they charged us a book price of 20 cents, and I think we sold it for over 100. And so, of course, that was her first time to go there. And
so she's hooked now.
Right.
For helping, at least for helping you look.
She is. She doesn't get to go as often, obviously, because the work. And since I'm self-employed, I have more ability to go and do that sort of thing. And a lot of places I have to go, bars or, pool halls or things like that, they don't even open till the afternoon, or no one gets to start doing things. So, so it did that a little bit, hit some, thrift stores, tried that, realized this is kind of smaller items. And I had always heard you talk about wanting to up your average sale price or average
profit.
Yeah. And I thought, well, why not just start going after bigger things, and, let's try to do that. So it's kind of what I did. And I'm not scared of almost any product. So I'll go after just about anything that's worth money. But that's what I like about estate sales. I can see pictures, and then I can kind of scout ahead of time for what you can see. Mm-hmm. And I'll get there early. I mean, if there's some good stuff and it's priced right, you never know though. It's a crapshoot, but it's a crapshoot going to a thrift store,
It is.
Price range you'll know, but you don't know what's going to be there. So I've certainly gone to some estate sales and come away with nothing or, very little. And then I've been to some that you're like, wow, this is really priced crazy low, or, really reasonable. And that's kind of where I've, hung my hat, made my niche.
Well, and the not knowing part is the drive for some people, the treasure hunt people.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you've got to be okay with showing up and nothing, leaving, going to the next one. Or, oh my God, how did they miss this? And they don't know what this is. And you just have no idea of That's why this business isn't for everybody, because if you want a set outcome, if you're a salaried worker or an hourly worker, you go to work and you get paid. But this is like, you may look all day and find nothing, but there's always tomorrow. There's always
Very
going to be more
possible.
stuff.
That's right. And then when you find something, jump on it,
Right. Like, don't be afraid.
scared of volume.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's talk about your eBay store and business. I'm assuming you have a store.
I actually don't have a store.
Wrong again.
I can't. So they just kept increasing my naturally my stuff and my amount I could sell and my dollar I could sell and all that. And I don't know if a store is worth it or not. I know it's a monthly or yearly fee depending on how you pay for it. And I already have enough that I can list for free. And I'm already a top rated seller. So I already have a bit of a deduction, in the fees and stuff. So, and I think I'm getting the same as I would if I had a store. And so I kind of looked at it from a cost perspective and thought, well, unless I'm, listing well above my allotment, which I think is, I want to say 250 a month. Then it's really not worth it. And I don't have that kind of, I have enough things where I could do that, but I don't have enough time to get them that many listed.
Yeah, right. The store is really just how eBay bills you for things and some of the features you get if you don't have a store, like markdown manager, running sales, stuff like that.
Yeah. So that has interest me. But I don't know if I need, I've done pretty well without it. So I don't know. It may be something I do in the future. I do like having the ability to maybe run some sales, but I can always send offers as well.
Right. Yeah. You can really do most anything without a store.
Sure.
As far as you can use promoted listings, you can send offers, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not trying to sell you on a store.
No.
For the listeners, it really doesn't matter. When you have the store, you get the branding and the bulletin board across the top, and you have more marketing capabilities. But you're an example of somebody who's doing perfectly fine without a store.
Yep. Do what works for you.
Well, how many things do you keep listed at a time?
Well, right now I've got 229 active.
Okay.
I probably run somewhere between 200 and maybe 250, 280.
Okay.
On the month and how much I can get listed. I did try to attack it pretty hard in May. Of course, May is where I ran into that big Barbie haul, and we can get into that.
Yes, we want to talk about that. And May was kind of a slow month for everybody with the new, I don't want to call it software, the new system where the view counts were changed. And I think it was just a reset for eBay. So everybody, I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of sellers had some slow months there when that new system was gaining momentum and getting into place.
Yeah. And so I tried to, I think that month, or maybe June, I think I tried to do all 250, and I came up maybe 30 or 40 short. And that was pretty taxing to try. Now, if you do 8 or 9 a day, you can do it. But, being self-employed, and we got 2 kids in sports and all kinds of stuff.
8 or 9 a day doesn't sound like much, but
No,
it really is. If you're taking pictures and if you're editing the pictures and getting the items listed. And my issue when I was stay-at-home mom and had kids was just constant interruptions. But that's why I worked at home, was to be there for my kids. And oh, it's time
Sure.
to go pick this one up at school, and this one has basketball, and got to help that one with the homework. And now it's time to cook dinner and all that. So it's not as easy as some people on social media make it look like. Oh, I
No,
did 30
yeah.
listings today. Well, and I know I beat this like a dead horse, but what does that mean? Does that mean you ended 30 and restarted them with no changes and it was all in bulk? Or does that mean you took pictures, edited pictures, listed the items? Because really, if you count all that time, I tried to break this down like as an analytical person, and it's at least 10 minutes per listing if you're
Oh,
including
yeah.
taking the pictures. And that
Sure.
doesn't even include cleaning the items or testing them or, any of that prep work you have to do before you even start. So if it's 10 minutes for the average person, that's only 6 listings an hour with no interruptions.
Right.
Like, you don't eat, you don't go to the bathroom, you don't let the dog out, all those things. And then if you're like me, you walk into the kitchen and you're like, crap, what did I come in here for? I know I need something out of this drawer. Wait, I forgot what it was. You
Yes.
stand there for a minute and retrace your thoughts like, oh yeah, I needed that. So, it's not as easy as people make it sound. 10 listings a day, every single day.
No, yeah. That's tough. And listing is the hard part. It's easy to find things.
Yeah, I mean, and everyone loves the treasure hunt. That's why
Sure.
the scavengers, Jay and Ryan, who used to have a podcast, they coined that term, death pile.
Okay.
So thank you to them for giving us a name for that ever-growing pile of stuff.
I definitely have one, but I've tried to thin out things I just know aren't going to be good, and most of it is just stuff I just can't. I haven't got to yet. I just can't.
Well, and you're out running around doing your other business, and so you're like, I'm going to stop here, I'm going to stop there. My problem with having a pile is, okay, I've already paid for that. I've already picked it out. If I stay here today and get that listed, those things could sell while I'm out getting more.
Sure.
So I'm fortunate enough to have set my life up to where I can get stuff whenever I want it. But I know that's what happens with some sellers, is like they're out doing other stuff anyway, and they just drop by and see what they can find, or, it's their day off and from their regular job and they can't do it any other time, or they're going to the doctor and the Goodwill is right next to it.
Yeah, I do
like
that.
where it'd be foolish to ignore it. So,
Oh, yeah.
There's no judgment on death piles.
No, I just look
totally
at it as
understand getting the stuff, and then you look back at 2020 and everything closed, and some people didn't have anything to list because they had piles. So you probably don't get much snow there in Texas.
No, we don't, but we did have that bad snowstorm. I think it was about 2 years ago now. 1 year, might have been, no, 2 years. I think it was in 20.
I know.
Yeah, that whole shutdown just threw me off like that.
If you're up north and you can't get out, or you don't want to, it's 4 degrees and 2 feet of snow on the ground and you got more coming, like, I totally get, I'm just going to go to my guest room and get some things to list. So no judgment, I get it. But so how many things would you estimate you have in your pile?
Probably, and I won't count maybe, there's some things I do need to get rid of. Like we bought some Happy Meal toys with some other things, and there's probably several hundred of those, but they don't take up a lot of room.
Right. Yeah.
But probably, I don't know, 1,600. Now,
okay, so I need to come to your house and shop in your pile.
Well, a lot of it are the Barbies that I bought.
Okay, yeah. So let's move on to that story, because you started listing all these Barbies, and I was like, who is this Brandon with all these Barbies? What is the deal?
Yeah. Well, I got, I had some family with some G.I. Joe stuff and dolls, so I always knew to kind of look at dolls. And So part of me wanting to get some bigger things. Now, I didn't know anything about Barbie, but I do know that some are expensive. So I was looking at an online estate sale. We have some around this area. I think it's called Carrying Transitions. I'm told, I thought it was just one company, but apparently it's a franchise. So I was looking at one of those, and they do online only. And they had some Monster High dolls, and then there were some Barbies, and there were some clothes. And I kind of kicked myself for not buying the damn clothes in that first sale. But
yeah, I'm shocked at all of that. Did you hear
right,
the podcast with Lewis about Barbies?
I did. I listened to it
Yeah.
on to a service call that was about an hour away.
And
So
that's when you were kicking yourself, right?
yeah, and I had seen Casey's find up there with those clothes, and I knew clothes could have some value, probably the older ones more than anything. And anyway, I won the auctions, and I kind of, I had scouted ahead of time on what they'd be worth, and I won almost every one. There was probably about 6 total lots. And some had maybe 8 things, some had 10, maybe 3 in this one. And when I got there, you had to go pick it up in person. The guy asked me, "Hey, you won all those things. Do you want more dolls? And are you interested in more?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. What do you got?" And he kind of gave me this look of just utter defeat and just shook his head. He's like, "There's so many more." And I said, "Okay, what are we talking?" He's like, "Probably 800 or more."
Like, do I need to go get a U-Haul to
Wow. Okay. And I'm like, "Are we talking about today?" Or, of course, the biggest thing is, how much do you want? That's going to be a huge question. And he kind of left it like, "I'll get back to you." And I thought, okay. And I went through, the stuff. I sold the stuff I had gotten there pretty quickly, but I was kind of nervous, like, I know there's other people that bought a few other things. So how many other people might he have told this to? And so after about 3 or 4 days went by, I decided to get back in touch with him. Like, "Hey, I don't want to lose this opportunity." And he told me I could come out and look at them. I think in a couple of days. So within that same week, or about a 7-day period, I came out to take a look. Did not know if I would be buying something that day or not, really just seeing what was there. So I just drove my truck. And they had a pod set up out front in the driveway, and they'd been moving stuff out of the house and staging in there and then taking their pictures and such. And so they had several totes in there, probably like, I don't know, 15, maybe more. And I just, some loose. And so I just really started looking through it. What's here? He didn't have a price. He just told me I could look through there and try to give him a number I would pay. And I thought, man, I don't even know how I'm going to do this, because I don't know anything about these. So what I did is, I had my auction sheet of what I had paid, and I thought, I'm just going to, some of the Barbies, I think I had averaged like $6-7 a piece. The Monster High were a little higher. And so I just went through and counted and just kind of came up with a number, and he took it immediately. And he's like, "Yeah, if you can get them today, that'll give us more room to put stuff in here." And I thought, "Oh, Lord, okay." So I loaded up the bed of my truck, 3 across, 3 high, strapped them all down. And he then let me go into the house, and it was a hoarder house.
Oh.
But apparently she was a fairly known person in the Barbie scene. I don't know what her name was. And I ended up meeting the people that bought the house. They were house flippers. And the husband was more, I didn't really talk to him. The wife was the one I dealt with. And she was like, "We need this stuff out of here, like ASAP, because we need to flip this house." And they had bought the contents separate of the house. But as she put it, they just counted it as one purchase, of the house. So her husband was more like, "These are probably worth, a fair amount of money." Of course, I would look some up and think, "Hey, this one's going to be worth a mint." And then, nope, that one's like a $20 doll. And then some of the ones you thought would be, $10, $15, it's $100. So they did it so fast that the same thing. I would come out and just count them and be like, hey, I'll give you this amount. And after a while, I was telling myself, you know what? I am doing them a massive favor here, because I did 16-foot trailer and we filled that sucker front to back, top to bottom. And my wife went with me on that one. And I got the look of, what in the ever loving what are you doing? And where are we going to put all this?
Are you high? What
Yes.
are you doing?
Yes. And I was telling her, baby, this
is money.
It is. And it's really one of those things that you dream about as a picker or a reseller, and so it ended up being 3 or 4 trips over there. The trailer was the biggest haul, although we took the trailer the second time, and it's going to turn out amazing. And so I kind of split them up. I did a run through just real fast. The whole family would sit together. We'd go through totes and just kind of gauge where these are $40 or higher, these are 40 or lower, and kind of separated the totes. And so I have them stacked out in my shop out there. And it's just a matter of getting to every tote,
Did you break down your total costs by number of items?
I did. After initially, with the Monster High, I had listed them all out of what I paid. I keep a spreadsheet on Excel, but once it got to that level, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to add all these together and then average out across.
Did you say what you paid for all of that?
I think it was 9,000. It was probably 9,200 ish. He called me back. I think I bought another lot there. They had saved a few to run in an auction, and I bought a few more there. And I want to say, we'll just say an even round number, maybe about 10 grand for the whole thing. And that was May, June was really when most of that was spent. And honestly, I think it's probably going to come out to, I don't know, it'll depend on what you can get but maybe 40, 50,000.
So have you made your money back on your initial
investment?
Okay,
yeah.
So you're already in the green.
Yeah. And my goal was that June, I wanted to try to get it all back, and just about did in June. So I purposely, kind of why we sorted through, I purposely grabbed the ones that I knew were a little higher dollar, and I'm just going to bust it. And that's where in June, I tried to use all 250 of my free ones, and I almost did. I got about 30, 40 short of being able to list 250. And I think in June, it had 101 items sell in June. I don't know that they were all dolls necessarily, but.
Wow.
So, yeah, busted it.
I can see your wife's hesitation or shock or I guess panic when she's like, you're spending $9,000 on Barbies? What?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And well, luckily I didn't have to do it all at once, because they broke it up in 2 week. I got that run. Then they told me come back, because they didn't want me to go in the house. It was really really packed. And they showed us pictures before, dangerous stuff will fall over. And so as they would get it out and be able to maneuver better in there, they would call me and say, hey, we need you to come get this next load. And
see, my mouth is just watering. I would love that kind of situation. It's just almost unlimited.
Absolutely.
Just go in there and see what you can find, because and that's the thing with vintage items is when you go to someone's house, definitely, sometimes thrift stores, but definitely in someone's house, estate sales, garage sales, they don't even know what they have. Oh, we cleaned out under the bathroom cabinet. We found all this cosmetics or vintage products still in the package that are 20 years old. And it's just striking gold when that happens, because there again, it's the it's the unknown that drives us. And I'm sure you've heard like George Kelly and a lot of others. He just comes to mind because he's so funny. He'll ask the people, what else do you have? Or he has a card. He gives them, I buy, and it lists out, model trains and anything old and all this stuff that he likes to work with. And they call him back. They're 2 months, 3 months, a year later, they're like, hey, we got your card when you came to our garage sale, and we got all this stuff. And he'll go over there and shop their house. And that's, to me, is genius, because if you don't ask, you don't get.
That's right.
And people may not even think about it. Like, oh, I could call this person. And he's got regulars on his list that call him, and like, they know he's going to pay them money. So when they need money, or they get through whatever it is, a death or whatever the situation was that they're cleaning out the house, and it takes time. It's not something a week. So you get through some of it, and you're like, hey, how about that guy that said he would buy some stuff? Let's get him over here and help get rid of some of these things. So it's a service you provide. So I just thought that was genius. But a hoarder.
I do that with clients too that work on their pinballs, or if you meet somebody to buy one, and I'll look around in there and, hey, what about this? I've been to some where they were gonna have an estate sale, but they didn't want to put the pinball machine in it or whatever. And you mind if I look around? And sure. And there's been I haven't really messed with trains, but there's been different things I bought. I went to one estate sale for a pinball machine specifically, and then thought, all right, I'm going to shop around here, and found a PlayStation out in the garage, a 2 that looked brand new, but it was out in the dusty garage and didn't have a price. Asked them what they wanted, was it tested, had some games with it and all that, and they told me, yeah, $10. I'm like, done. And I think I've sold that for probably in the 150 range with all of the games and all that stuff. And that was kind of from my era too. So I kind of knew a PlayStation 2. And I had fixed some in the past too, because I work on the pinball machine. So not scared of them, but you never know. It's be tough.
What was your professional life before you took over the pinball repair business?
I did that pretty much out of college. I actually, I'd had jobs through college, mostly like Michael's and things like that. But I actually was interviewing with Dell around the time my dad had gotten cancer. So around the time he was going through the diagnosis of all that, I actually did not get hired over there because I made it, I think, to the last interview, and they chose a day, and I took that day off. We had stuff scheduled, and I told them, and they knew that I was working with him, and we took the day off, and they didn't call that day, and we'd move things to the following day. So then the following day we were doing that job, and they called me, and I'm like, hey, I'm at a job right now. I took yesterday off, and they just hung the phone up. And so I never heard back from them. And I mean, that's okay, because, I went into that other career path.
That sounds about right for corporate America.
Yeah. And I never really wanted to be a cubicle guy, and I don't like shorts and a t-shirt are pretty much my go-to. Jeans up and down is dressy for me. So
what is your degree in?
I got a general business degree.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I actually was going healthcare management, mostly because back then everybody was, oh man, this is the emerging field. And I got 3 semesters away from that degree and realized I don't really want to do this. So I transferred and then just made it a general business so I could have kind of a little bit of everything, accounting and management.
Right.
So
that's what I did. I started off in early childhood education and realized I don't want to be with all these kids all day. I'll be with my own later life, but that wasn't for me. I didn't have the patience. And then I got into criminal justice because that was in the late 80s when all the DNA
Mm-hmm.
technology was emerging. And I just thought that was fascinating. You could catch criminals because they left a hair at the scene, or, all this evidence that had been saved for decades until the technology was there. They were going back through old cases and, getting DNA off a cigarette butt. And I just thought that was fascinating.
Absolutely.
I got into that, and we got to the part about crime scenes, and I couldn't do it. It was all this gory graphic stuff, pictures of children mutilated and all this.
Mhm.
And all I could think of was, this is someone's child, or this
Yeah.
is someone's daughter, or for adults, this is someone's mother. And I just couldn't separate it. So
Yeah.
then I had all these classes, and I'm like, I just need to get a degree. So I went general business.
Yeah.
And so many days when I'm washing my plush and taking pictures of them, or, shipping a doll that sold for $100, I just laugh to myself and think, yeah, this is why I went to business school.
Yep.
I could sell these little things and have my own business. I mean, I'm kind of laughing at myself, but no, it's true.
Yeah.
I can be an entrepreneur and sell whatever I want. And
Absolutely.
I love it. So
I do too. I like the freedom. I mean, there is freedom, but anytime you work for yourself, you're working longer hours, and
oh yeah, you're working harder than you've ever
So,
worked
sure.
for anybody, because if it goes south, it's all on you.
That's
You
it,
can't
yeah.
blame a coworker for something. It's
Oh.
like, okay, that didn't work. Got to go move on to the next idea.
Yep.
So let's talk about some of your sales and backstories, if you have any.
Well, I do have a few. I do have one that I never posted on the site because it didn't get sold on eBay.
Okay.
I did post it on eBay, and I mostly do everything on eBay. Sometimes I'll cross post something on Craig or Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
It's really massive or something like that. But I had at another Carrying Transitions estate sale back in April, they had a sub-site utility guard detection kit, which is used for finding pipes and buried cables and things like that under the ground. And this thing looked brand new, and it had the case and all that. And it showed that it came on. I did a little research on it, that it ran on batteries. And I ended up winning that. I put my max that I would go, believe it or not, up to $2,000. I was winning it forever for 800.
Ah.
And then it got down to me and this one person. And I'm like, oh, if you just wouldn't have showed up, but so I think I paid $2,300 for that sucker, with the fees and all, buyer's premium and all that. And I posted on eBay. I wanted to make $1,500 on it. I had researched them. You couldn't find a price online for them new. So I actually had to call, I think Ditch Witch is who would sell them. And I had to ask them, if they had any in stock, what they would cost. And they retailed for somewhere around $8,000. And I actually had a guy in Italy interested in it on eBay. And then I had a guy in Houston interested in it on Facebook. And it just kind of came down to who got here, did it first. And of course the prices were different because the fees on eBay, and I wiggled down a little further. So I sold it for $3,800 on Facebook, and I made my $1,500, and I was excited. I got a Howard Miller clock at a sale, and I don't know anything about clocks, but I had looked it up, of course, ahead of time, and seen only one had sold. I think around 8 something.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I remember that now.
And this one, I sold it for $795. I think I took a best offer on it. And I mean, it was fairly good size clock,
What'd you pay for it?
$218.40 was the total bill.
So you
ended up making $401. Yeah. And I think I did free shipping.
Uh-huh.
I cleared about $401 on it, which was nice.
Excellent.
Yeah. And that was back in April as well. So really in April, I was trying to start getting maybe little bigger items or just higher profit margin. Shipping's never really scared me too much.
Well, and you deal with those big pinball machines and other gaming units that you're used to dealing with big stuff.
I do, yeah, and I don't ship those a ton. I mean, most of my customers are local,
Right. But like in your
but
normal
I have,
day.
yeah. I mean,
That's
in college, I started out. I was shipping them for my dad. Like, hey, let me palletize this. I don't know how to palletize anything. Let me go buy the stuff for it. And I didn't have any knowledge of shipping, so I would call a shipping company. Hey, here's what I want to do. Price was probably $2,000. Call another one. What can you do for me? They would give you a 10% discount. You just keep calling around. And eventually I ended up with a 60% discount at one and a 55% discount at the other. And I never shipped a thing, never sold a pinball, so.
And that's the thing about shipping is there's always a way to do it. You just have to know how. And shipping does intimidate eBay sellers. That's the biggest fear of new people is I don't know how to ship anything. And you just start off with stuff that's easy. But I mean, you could ship
Shipping's
a car.
Not that hard though.
You could ship. There's ways to do it. You just have to figure it out and make sure you charge the buyer enough so that the burden falls on them.
Yeah. Books. I look for the Easton Press, and I know you've had some people come on that talked about different books, Oxford and some of the different. I can't think of the one off the top of my head, but there's some other ones that are known, real good stuff. And I found 10 volumes of that at an estate sale in February. Didn't even really think it was the third day or second day, might have been the second day. And it was in a pretty upscale part of town. I figured most of the good stuff that's ridiculously low price, the best deals are probably gone, but I'll pop my head in. And sure enough, there's 10 volumes sitting there. And
isn't that funny? It's all about who's been there before you.
Sure.
What they do or don't want to ship, whatever it is. And I have done some estate sales and garage sales, and it's you run into people who have these antique booths, even though it's not really antiques, it's just made to look like antiques.
Yeah.
And I'll hear them talking. They'll be like, oh, that's a really great item, but that's not going to go in my booth. Like it doesn't match their theme. And so as soon as they're done looking at it, I go over there and, do I want to ship this? What is this thing? And it's just so interesting about who's been there before you, who's having the sale and what they're charging. Sometimes that's an immediate no, because they've got those printouts of eBay stuff all over the place, and that's not what you want as a reseller. You want the people who they don't want to drag all that stuff back into the house. They want to get rid of it. They're moving next week and they have to get everything out of there, or it's an estate and they're trying to get it wrapped up so they can get back to their life. And so you want those garage sale, estate sale hosts to have a sense of urgency about getting rid of stuff, not be in it for how much money they can make, because that is not helpful for us.
It's not. But even those, you can find, good deals there.
I mean, you just have to be industrious and look and offer and make deals and all that.
The ahead of time, so being able to look up ahead of time so you at least have an idea is what I love about that. Is most of them post pictures online, and anything you can spot, at least you'll have a list. Like sometimes I'll go with a sheet of paper, with them listed out. Here's what I'm after from most to least, and we'll see if they're there or what the prices are. And if the prices are, I'll have what they sell for. And so I can gauge real quick. All right, if it's under whatever, $50, then I'll take it no matter what. And then you try to make that determination if it's a little over that. And
right. Yeah. You have to have your threshold, your formula of what's the most I will pay based on the expected outcome.
Yeah. And be disciplined. I mean, walk away if you have to,
Because I ask sellers all the time, what is your strategy? What is your formula for what you will buy to resell? And a lot of people don't have one. They just buy it. But
Yeah.
on the higher priced items, you really need to figure that out.
Yeah. And I've learned a little bit through, I've bought things and didn't make as much because the fees, or you just learn like, okay, that seemed like a better deal at that time. And still made a profit, but just not what I would have liked or,
So back to the Barbies, you've sold some of them, and do you know which one sold for the most so far?
Oof. Well, I've had several that have been in the 100. Probably, I posted recently one that was at the Amazonian Barbie. I had two of her. I think the last one sold for 140, I think, or 145, somewhere in that area. The other one, I think, for 160. I had seen some go for 180, but I took best offers on both. And there's others that are higher, others that are lower, but I also do international. So if you're not doing international, absolutely do it. You'll be one of the few, as you've said. And there's others that have lower prices, but probably because I'm going international and they come to me because they can't get anywhere else. And I haven't really had too many problems, with it. I've had a package lost here or there. And I've learned some countries you can't send toys to. So I've had some returned to me. I've had others lost in waiting. But
which international option are you using?
I do the eBay international. You've mentioned, I think, in the past that that's a little cheaper for the buyer.
The eBay standard international.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, which I think is probably more like a ground. I assume it's like an economy. I think
it's
was like priority to them.
Version of first class international, but it goes up to 66 pounds.
Yeah.
Like
it's a lot.
Weight. So, but you're a business person, so you already knew there was benefits to do that.
Sure.
Yeah, the statistic that I found is only 10% of eBay sellers ship internationally.
Yeah.
And I would love to talk to people who don't more. Well, I talk to them all the time, but usually they think more paperwork or something is required. It's not. It's all right there on the customs form when you print the label. Or they're not a world traveler, like they've never been out of the US and they just have this fear of other countries. But we're in a global economy, we're all connected, so we can overcome that fear. Or
it's so easy with technology too. I mean, a lot of times I'll speak to them in their native language. They'll translate to me, but then you'll get one back in French or in Spanish or in whatever, German, anything they speak. And you just go to Google Translate and you can type what
I love doing that.
Back and
at least making an effort. It may not translate perfectly, but it's close enough, and they can see that you're making an effort to work with them.
I've had several repeat buyers. Australia is probably my number one overseas client at the moment. I don't think there's a close second, but I think I've shipped to probably 16, 17, 18 different countries at this point. So it's awesome. And it's not hard. It's not hard at all. My mother was scared. I told her, let's put on international shipping. And she said, oh, no, let me just do the regular. No.
What was her hesitation?
Because she's never shipped anything before, and she's not a technology person, and just getting her on there. Now that if you have to sit with her and have her physically do it, you can't really do it for her. And she finally listed, and then I think she listed 2 other things all by herself. So I'm proud of her.
Oh, great. That's wonderful.
She's got 3 items up.
Yeah, she has her own eBay now. And
that's right.
That's motivating. But back to her hesitation, I think another fear is you're going to lose money. And if it gets lost, you lose money. But
Well, yeah.
through eBay, you have insurance, you have tracking. You can buy extra insurance for international, which is very cheap. I've never paid more than like $1 for it. There's all these safety nets you can use. And we're not living in a time where, oh, it got lost, you lose money. No, there's all kinds of recourse and ways to solve that problem. So, and buyer pays shipping. You don't ever ship free internationally.
No.
You always do, have the buyer pay. So that's not going to be an issue.
She's seen me go through a few headaches. I mean, they're not major headaches, but, somebody say I didn't get it yet and it's just going slow, and I'm like, just be patient. Clearly I had a hiccup here. And, I had one buyer, she actually in Australia, we were communicating pretty well. And then it just went dark. And then she opened a return and said she didn't get it. And I'm like, it's still moving, we still have movement. And it came up to the last possible day where I had to finally do something and it said delivered. So I was able to update like, okay, it's delivered. Well, then she, maybe 4 days went by, no problems. And then she reopened the return and said the item was not as described. And I'm like, but she wrote out a really long explanation of the slow and not getting there on time, but wrote nothing in the item not described. So of course that was my first time with that. I'm like, well, what do I do here? So I did call eBay to ask them because I said, I don't know what I'm defending against here. And they moved me up to a different tier guy that would, I guess, investigate that. And he's like, yeah, I don't even know what to tell you because she didn't put any details.
Yeah, so, like we can't solve her problem if we don't know what it is.
He's like, do you have the certificate of authenticity? And I'm like, I do, but it's in the box and it's behind the doll. Like I would have had to take the doll out of the box to get to. He's like, well, if you had a picture of that, that'd be great. And I'm like, yeah, but I could have taken a picture of that and she could say it's not in there. I mean, it's still your word against theirs. So,
oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But he told me that it wasn't her going through them. It was actually her disputing with her payment of whatever credit card or whatever form she used. And so they weren't going to be the ones to make the decision. They were just going to pass it on to them. So I just took made a collage picture of the photos and it was brand new. I mean, it was in the box and they found it in my favor and I never heard back again. Never got feedback, but.
Well, and it sounds like she was out to do something dishonest from the beginning.
Probably.
Didn't receive it. And then, that's not going to work. So let me try something else.
It was slow. It was about eight or 10 days, I think, past the due date. But clearly you could see when it made it to Australia, there was a massive gap in its movement. And, everybody's struggling in this world. You don't know why shipping, we got wildfires in places and floods and people don't have employees. So there's no telling.
Yeah. The understaffed situation everywhere is in all countries is just, that's a problem when it's mail carriers and postal services that are understaffed. It's like the stuff just piles up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we are getting close to the end.
All right.
I did want to ask you
Sure.
what kind of things you look for when you do go to thrift stores, even though you have what seems like a small thrift store in your house.
Yeah. I look for plush. I do. I've found some plush at some. I don't have any Goodwills around here, any thrift stores that have like a plush aisle like you've shown. And, I mean, some have.
That's like a bloom where you're planted thing,
Yeah.
What's available to you, and then you capitalize on that.
Sure. I mean, I have some that are better than others that have a little more than others. Some, you might be lucky to see 5 or 6 things at a particular Goodwill, and then other ones, maybe there's 20 or 30. So I have a few that I will go to that are kind of closer to me that do have some, and I'll look for plush, or I'll go over to the backpacks. I mean, I found a Webkins signature at that Goodwill that I like to go to, and I think it was $3 or $4. Sold it for like 80.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was a little one. It wasn't a big one at all. Um,
Didn't it have to work? Didn't it do something?
no, it was just a Webkin signature. I think they came with little tags that maybe gave you some kind of Webkin's points or something like that. I don't believe he had that tag anymore, but yeah, the person that got him was still excited. It was a limited, not all the signatures are worth, but I looked them up and I found a backpack at one. So I'll kind of browse through everywhere. I don't as much look through the clothes anymore. I used to, and I would find I've bought some stuff with tags, some golf shirts or things like that, but that's so saturated. And I'm not a clothes shopper as it is. I mean, my wife.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to do what you're drawn to. And as far as the clothing part, didn't I mail your BOLO book to you a couple of days ago?
Yeah, I'm supposed to do it today.
So, there's a few items in there, but they're easily recognizable. That's what I like, is you see that Coogie sweater with all the crazy patterns, or you see that vintage varsity jacket,
Yeah.
I don't really look through, well, not anymore, every single clothing item.
Yeah.
I like to figure out, like on my holy grail list is a Lily Pulitzer long dress, maxi dress.
Mm-hmm.
I can walk down the dress aisle and just look for that without having to look for all of them. But okay, well, we're going to wrap it up here with the final question of advice. What kind of advice would you give sellers struggling, just starting?
It's slow to start. You're not going to just come out of the gate selling everything. So be patient, but be persistent. Be nice. Be kind to everybody, whether it be at a sale or anyone online. Even people you think are trying to screw you over, don't buy. You never know when that bridge may come back around.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be scared. I know it's easy to say, but shipping is not hard. And don't be scared to dip your toe into other things. I mean, find what you love, but experiment with other stuff too. And you may find something else that you like, wow, I really love this. And I was so scared of it before, and because some things are really easy. They're easier to ship or easier to sell or things like that. And you might not be doing it just because you're a little scared of, well, I don't know anything about that. Well, okay, go buy one or two or research it before you buy it. So don't be.
Well, and if you think like tomorrow, you're always going to know more than today.
Sure.
So, you're never going to be at that level that you're at today where you didn't know about XYZ. Go ahead and learn about it. And then going forward, you're going to know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a constant evolution.
Absolutely.
So, well, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy Barbie day to
You're welcome.
come chat.
I got to run to the post office here and drop off about 8 or 9 boxes. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks again. And
Absolutely.
we will see you and your amazing sales on the Facebook group.
All right. It's always a pleasure.
Okay.
Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you so much, Brandon. That was really informative. And I commend you for not being afraid to sell Barbies. Okay, on to today's trivia question. What is the meaning of the word eureka, and why do people say it? I feel like I'm in a eureka mode right now. Here are 5 seconds to think about it. Okay, the word eureka means I found it, and it's widely attributed to ancient Greek scholar Archimedes, who apparently said it when he stepped into a bath and noticed that the water level rose. Suddenly he understood that the volume of water displaced must be equal to the volume of the part of his body he had placed into the water, which is also known as the Archimedes principle. So if you want to hear that again, Archimedes' principle states that a body immersed in a fluid is subjected to an upwards force equal to the weight of the displaced fluid. This is a first condition of equilibrium. So, a little science for you today, the Archimedes principle. And eureka comes from the ancient Greek word meaning I have found it. So, there you go. You just never know what you're going to learn by listening to this podcast. And thank you again for making my podcast a part of your week. I will be back next week with MJ, who is a busy wife, mother of 4, and eBay seller. She is a master at juggling responsibilities and makes it all work. I hope you have a stellar week on eBay, and I will talk to you next week from my new location. Bye, everybody.